All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to I'm a Member Now What? This is all about the ORCID Member Portal. I'm Kimberly Iniger, Events and Outreach Specialist here at ORCID. Now, before we get started, I would like to bring your attention to some features available during the webinar to enhance your experience. So, first, we have closed captioning and translated captions. These features allow you to enable audio captions and translate those captions into a few different languages. To enable, click on the Show Captions button in your Zoom toolbar. We also have a dedicated Q&A channel, and we invite you to submit your questions throughout the session. To do so, click on the Q&A button in the Zoom toolbar. You can also view questions other attendees have submitted, upvote questions you're interested in, and add comments. We do have some helpful documentation available to assist you in accessing these features, which is available in the Resources tab in the Zoom toolbar. Finally, the session is being recorded, and the recording, along with all session materials, will be shared after the session. So today, Brian Minahan from the ORCID engagement team joins us. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Brian to begin our presentation.
Thanks very much, Kimberly. Hello, everyone. Very pleased to be with you. And I'm happy to share a bit about the member portal. So thanks for joining. I do think there'll be quite a lot more people who join for the recording's sake. And I hope they find it useful as well. So without further ado, let me share my screen. All right. Kimberly, is that visible?
Yep, it looks good.
Good. All right, let's get started. Okay, thanks for joining, everyone. The member portal is quite an interesting aspect that's available to ORCID members, so I'm happy to be a part of this. It's also a pretty new aspect of ORCID, so I will talk a bit more about that. So what are we covering? We're going to talk about what it is, how to access it, how to manage the accounts. Also for consortia, how to navigate your consortium members' access to it and what they see. Fourth, I think is most important, is the reporting. And then, of course, we'll touch a bit on the affiliation manager. Kimberly, if it's all right with you, I will actually gloss over quite a bit of the affiliation manager because very few institutions have it. And we also have a separate part of our series focusing on the affiliation manager for the full hour, kind of like this one. And then we'll have time for Q&A. All right. So this is me, Brian. I work with consortia. At ORCID, we have about 1,300 member organizations globally. About 75% of those are part of a national consortia. So that means somebody in their home country has taken up the task of, really doing a lot of things on behalf of their members for a discounted fee, and also providing additional support with ORCID, because ORCID is a small organization of around 40 individuals worldwide. Now, let me just state a wee bit. I think the member portal is important to consider in the context of ORCID, because really what ORCID is research infrastructure. So we're not a vendor. We're not a massive publisher who creates article indexes or anything like that. We really only do a few things. We have this unique ID. We offer an ORCID record free of charge to anyone who's a researcher. And how we sustain ourselves is by member fees to use the API to add information and to read information from those ORCID records. So that's still the same, but the member portal was kind of created a few years ago to give members a bit of a window into what on earth is going on at their institutions, right? So I would say 4, 5, 6 years after ORCID was created, we kind of realized, okay, we're asking you to pay us annual fees, and then it's up to you to do the API integration. You can create a system on your own self. You could come up with a vendor thing, but really that was all. And one of the most common questions is, how many researchers do I have? How many people are we connected with? What do they do? So essentially kind of asking the basic question of, what's going on with my researchers, and kind of asking for more detail of what ORCID offered via this research infrastructure. And the member portal is meant to illuminate that, to kind of provide more value to member institutions. So it's available to all ORCID members. Often we will solicit the main contact of an institution, and if you don't know who your main contact is, I will provide an email address in the chat here. So in other words, to ask us who we have as your main contact. Member institutions vary very, greatly. So the main contact may be like kind of a dean, some high level person, or it may be kind of somebody who's more involved with the day-to-day API things. So this is why I mentioned that if you're unsure, please contact us and let us know. All right. So what we have now. Account management means the account for you, the member university or funding agency or publisher or what you have. You can also manage, if you're a consortia lead, a little bit about your members there. As I said, most, I think, valuable is the reports. So this is the details of how your organization connects to ORCID. Resources, I don't know if I have too many of links, to be honest, in today's session, so apologies for that. But I will provide my email and contact information a bit on. And the affiliation manager, as I said, it's a whole different thing, and I'll share the date and session information for that. If you don't know how to access the member portal, when we created it, I think about 3 years ago, we sent an invitation to a main contact. And again, if you don't know who that is, I'll be happy to share that. One thing that does happen, and we have to be conscious about this with time zones especially, is the link is valid for 24 hours. So don't feel shy about asking us, hey, we don't know if we have access. Once you do have access, though, you can reset a password, right? And as the last line says, your username is always your email address. One thing that's odd about I shouldn't say odd, but that is the way the member portal is set up, is we want one person with admin control at every member institution. So this is tricky. People leave, people have different roles. You can, if you're part of a consortia, you can certainly update your consortia lead organization. But do keep us updated, because that one person is the person who can make changes to accounts. So that means they can add and delete user accounts. Before they leave, let's say I'm, organization owner for University X. I could transfer it to Kimberly, our host, before my role is done. And then she would have the admin ability to control those user accounts for University X. Finally, the people you see in the portal are not necessarily ORCID contacts. So you may see sometimes something about who's your main voting communications technical contact. That's mostly for ORCID's benefit. We want to be able to know, especially in larger institutions, who is responsible for different decisions there. So the portal is quite a bit different. And I know that's not intuitive, and we may figure out a better way of distinguishing those things. So when you log into the member portal, this is kind of what you'll see. You can see there's public details, there's a website, there's also an email. Again, this is very consortium specific. So you as a consortia lead, if you are, this is how you might view the details of your consortium members. And you can also add update request via this way. Okay, good. Here we are to the reports. So this was the main point of the member portal. As I said, to add a bit of value on top of just something you connect to your local system. So at the moment, we have a member report, affiliation report, integration report. If you are a consortium lead, then you have a consortia report about all the members within your consortia. And there's also the affiliation manager tool, which you need to request from ORCID. And this is only available from consortia members at the moment. On the left, you'll see, this is what I see when I go into the member portal. So there's the public details, there's a description about my organization, ORCID, and so forth. So the first aspect, there's a lot of detail in here, and it's sometimes not too clear about what the descriptions or the aspects that we're showing in the report mean. So I've provided this link at the bottom, and then each part of the member report has a description of what does records updated mean? What does geography and affiliations mean? So that's been improved since we've rolled that out. Affiliations, we feel like this is a very important part of ORCID, is providing that trusted and valued connection to a researcher's employment, education, service, qualification, membership. These are all things that we do as academic researchers that don't often get counted in the, say, straightforward publication. So this is meant to provide that to the member organization. And similarly, in the impact and affiliated records, it has a description of what exactly these mean if you go to the link at the bottom. Finally, I think this is, if I had to focus on anything in this webinar about the member portal, it's the integration report. I have a screenshot of, what I see from ORCID's integration report, but then again, we're not really a typical user of ORCID. So if you look down the bottom where it says connected IDs, and then connected IDs, first name, family name, I would say by and far, this is kind of the thing that members always ask us, or even potential members. They want to know the ORCID ID and the information, the metadata of the people that are connected to them. So this integration report is extremely important because these are the folks that we have a record of connecting to your integration. So this is completely different from somebody adding, oh, I went to Harvard, and things like that. This is metadata on who has interacted with your integration, including the ORCID ID and the name and so forth. Yeah. Okay, and then again, if you're a consortia lead, you will have a consortia report. Each of these have detailed explanations about what consortia email domain, consortia affiliation, and also the consortia member affiliation reports means. Okay, here's the affiliation manager. I am not going to play this video right now because we have another full-time, no, sorry, I accidentally played it. We have a video, or sorry, a full session scheduled for late July on the affiliation manager. And I think you'll be able to, if you're really interested, you'll be able to join that. If you've joined this session, you'll get a copy of the slides and be able to play that video on your own. The affiliation manager, by the way, is a tool that we created in consort with the member portal, mostly to kind of give organizations, especially smaller organizations or organizations without technical know-how, an easy tool to use to add affiliations via the member API to their researchers. And I can think of a few institutions that have really used this. They've been extremely proactive. One of those is SUNY, the State University of New York. Many of their campuses have used this, and let's see, there are a few in France via the French consortia of Couperin. Several in the US, Cornell, University of Georgia, University of Pennsylvania that have as well. Increasingly, there are some institutions in Chile via the Chilean consortium that have used this. And there is also 2 US government agencies that have done a number of employment affiliations and things using this tool. So it's, it's something that's there if you're part of a consortium. And I encourage you to tune in to that July 24th session. But really, a bit of how it works is, through an additional tab in the member portal, we'll give you like a template CSV file, because the member organization will have all the information of who works for them, who studies with them, who holds such and such permissions. And essentially, you just populate that template, you upload it. We will then get back to, and you'll also have a kind of an admin screen, so you can see who said yes, who's on the fence, and who said no to your request. Because, again, we're ORCID, so you're going to be asking them to do an authentication process to give them permission for you to add to their ORCID record. And yeah. And that is more or less what I have to share.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Brian, for the presentation. We have plenty of time for questions and answers, so I invite everyone to drop their questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to as many as we can. Brian's got his contact information here. We mentioned this at the beginning of the session, Brian. Who should members be reaching out to if they're not sure who their account owner is, or if they need help getting access to Member Portal?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. And I'm putting the email domain here. So if you're an ORCID member, or actually, even if you're not, this is the contact domain that you can ask for. We'd like to be a member, or we'd like to form a consortium, or we're a consortium member, but we don't know who our main contact is. Any of those things can be addressed by that email domain.
Great, thank you. So as we wait for a couple questions to come in, I had a few questions that hopefully will help other people as well. At the beginning, we talked about account owners versus users. Is there a limit to how many users an organization can have within the member portal?
No, you can have as many as you like. The one tricky bit is, as you mentioned, the organization owner. It's sometimes not intuitive to who that is, and that person, I find often that person might not have even activated their account, because we saw them as a main contact, but they might be like a vice president or a dean of somebody who's very busy and doesn't look at these sort of things. And you may have some further down here. So this is especially why contacting this email address. We are happy to switch those around, and I think that happens quite a lot. That clarifies.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So if anyone's having issues with that, please be sure to reach out to member support so we can help you out with that. One question we have here is, there's a little background and then the question. So it's, our institution enabled an integration with Proposal Central, but I don't see any ORCIDs associated via that integration in the integration report. What could be limiting ORCID connections via that integration? Or is there user error, or any insight on what could be happening there? I know it's hard to know specifics without digging into the exact one, but any ideas, Brian?
Yeah, I do have an idea. You might be using Proposal Central's API credentials. So that's a possibility. Please feel free to email me your institution details, my email contacts there, or member support. Because more or less, everything on the member dashboard shows up with the API client and things. So if you're using, say, Altum Proposal Central's credentials inadvertently, this does happen sometimes. Especially, I know that's a grant management system, but sometimes this happens, especially with publishers as well. So we'll be happy to clarify and see what's going on.
Great. And they mentioned that they will follow up, but I'll make sure that you get the contact information too, Brian, so we can
Yeah,
help out
that's
there.
grand. That's grand. Yeah, thanks.
Something I'm curious about is, as you know, on ORCID records, we allow people to set their own privacy settings, whether if they want their record to be public or private or any of that. Would privacy settings inhibit people from showing up on these kinds of member reports, or do you see them in spite of that?
Yeah, good question, Kimberly. So yes, it will. And the other thing that we're, I would say, grappling with from an Intravase point of view is if those settings change, they might not be reflected in the member portal. All right, so we're kind of aware that that might be an issue, and so yeah, it's essentially, do the visibility settings have to be taken with a grain of salt. The other thing I might add, though, is I think these are especially pertinent to the integration report, as I emphasized, is kind of the most important. But then again, most members should, their system has to be reviewed by ORCID, and we always check to make sure that you're keeping a log of authentications and records and things like that. So in theory, you should have a record of all this locally, but this is kind of our version of connections. Yeah.
Makes sense.
So yeah,
Um,
there's the kind of the backstop, the plan B, I would say, is your local system, to be fair. Yeah.
Good to know. It looks like someone else is commenting that they're also having an issue seeing excuse me, those ORCIDs listed in integration reports, but this one with faculty success. So I guess two-part question then, Brian. One, is this a known issue or perhaps something we need to raise with the team to see if there's something going on with integration reports and why these things aren't showing up? And two, are there other or additional services that are reporting as expected that people may want to look into for their organization?
Yeah. It Again, it would be good to have the organization details, but to be honest, there are some organizations which are not appearing as expected in the member reports. And where, our product folks and development folks are aware of that and they're working on that. I do think, they've said that that will be like a refresh. And in essence, like, we have the ORCID registry of what, 17 million researchers, and then we have a system that displays metadata from that from an SQL perspective. And so it will just take a refresh to that. And I know that's inconvenient. The other thing about faculty success is they have communicated to us recently that they are going to update their capability this year. So it may be that they've said this and then, but it's not happening yet. So if they said that, oh, you should be able to do this, and you're looking at the member portal, expecting things to be added from faculty success. So that's digital measures watermark. That's the system that doesn't quite add to ORCID yet, but is expected to later in the year. So I'm not quite sure which of those possibilities this might be, but
That's good to know. It's always nice to know that there's new things coming up. I have taken the information of the submitters of these two questions so we can connect offline and make sure
Yeah,
that we can get
good
them
one.
some assistance. Um, we still have time for Q&A, so any questions, please feel free to submit them. Um, I guess we can preview a little bit. The next section that we have in this series is on April 24th, and it's going to be all about integrations. So while we're talking about integrations in the integration report, for anyone on the call who is not yet integrated, are there specific integrations or easy integrations that you would recommend to them, Brian?
Um,
Easy.
yeah, but I we don't like to. So one of the things about the point of being research infrastructure, we work with a lot of systems, and we don't try to choose favorites and things like that. But I can tell you which systems work very well, and those are pretty much the ones that have been certified as service providers. So if you're working with a CRIS system, or if you're in North America, you call it a RIMS, symplectic elements by Digital Science is a very, not just certified, but it's a very comprehensive system. Yeah, so I can, certainly add an update on certification as we go along. But I think, we're pretty much doing blog posts, aren't we? As we, so, for another example is the system I just mentioned, faculty success, otherwise known as digital measures, otherwise known as Watermark. That's certified as well, just doesn't add any information to ORCID. So if you, as a member, want to get a sense of what your researchers are up to at the moment, you can certainly, you know, hoover all that information from ORCID via your researcher's consent, of course.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about what it means to be a certified service provider?
Yeah. So it's a good question. As I said, there's one of the most confusing aspects about ORCID is that know, we're kind of a research infrastructure thing. So we're kind of like plumbing or electricity, and you choose to plug into us. However, we don't produce the, energy or what have you. That's up to a third party. And that could be a repository, it could be a grant management system. So we work with a lot of different systems, and logically, one of the most crucial questions is, which system should I use to connect with ORCID? I don't know. It always depends on what you want to do, because it's a big world. Research is a big thing. And so to make it easier on folks, we came up with an idea of maybe certifying some of the most common tools that connect with ORCID. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't use a tool that's not certified. So I'm going to be a very bad spokesperson and call out, Elsevier Pure. It's a very common research information management system, CRIS system, but we haven't quite certified them yet. And really, there's many reasons. It's not that we don't have approved members that use that. It's just that the head organization hasn't really cooperated with us to go through that process. So there we are. If you're a new university or funding agency or whatever, and you want to connect via Pure, fine. I mean, all we really need is a few details, and there's quite a lot of Elsevier Pure systems. It's just the certification requires the people developing that system to go through all of the process that they meet our best practices.
It's very helpful. And I'll just add that we do have a webinar series called Enabling Value, where we do feature these certified service providers. And part of the series is they come on and they tell us about their product, and then they walk us through step by step how to use it. So we do have a session on 26 March featuring Public Knowledge Project. Well, they'll be showing us open journal systems and open preprint server. So definitely come check that out if either of those would be helpful to your organization, or come learn if they would be helpful to your organization. This next question is about affiliation manager, which it's okay to answer here, but we'll reiterate that we do have
Oh, of
that
course, yeah.
affiliation manager focus session coming up in July. So this organization is exploring the affiliation manager and loving what they see, which is awesome to hear. Some of the documentation mentions being able to write works to record via affiliation manager tool, but it doesn't seem to be a current function. Is that planned in the future?
Good question, Amanda. No, not right now, because we're calling it affiliation manager, not work manager. So one of the drawbacks of the tool is that it will only do employment, education, invited position, membership, and distinction. So anything you see in the affiliation section of the ORCID is all it'll do. Mostly because this is kind of the intent of the tool, to kind of, there's more and more I would say pressure on researchers, research organizations, funders, for research integrity and compliance and things. And so this is kind of where it's meant to go, if that makes sense. And I completely understand from my former life at a university how it'd be great to have an easy API tool to add works to my researchers' records, but that's not in the cards for now. So.
Thanks for the context, Brian. I believe we have time for one or two more questions, so we'll leave that open. In the meantime, I'm going to share some information in the chat. Got a couple of links here for everybody. The first is for the next session in this series, which is on the 24th of April. It is in a more APAC friendly time zone. Our colleague Estelle will be hosting that one. It'll be focused all about integrations. It is more of a introduction to integrations, kind of a 101 session where you'll learn about what is an integration, what options are available to you, how do you get started. And then we do have a more deep dive into integrations coming up in June, all about custom integrations. So if you are looking to only write works to records, perhaps building a custom integration will work for you. Also have a link here to our events calendar, which shows all of our upcoming events for the year, but of course, always more to be announced. And then finally, I do invite you to catch up on our previous webinars, which are all available on our ORCID On Demand page. So here you'll find our previous sessions within this I'm a Member Now What series. You'll see our enabling value and a bunch of other cool stuff that we've done over the years. I guess before we sign off, I'll just ask Brian, is there any main takeaways that you'd like people to leave with today regarding the member portal?
You know, maybe not so much the member portal, but if I could just add a bit of global context, because I know one thing I benefit from in my position is that I can see what's going on in multiple countries and initiatives and things like that. So I just want to add this for context. So the integrations bit, there's some really, and also, as you mentioned, Kimberly, how to get certified and things like that. Some countries that work very actively with ORCID have an extremely centralized and focused approach. So they will create a system that they use for their researchers to connect with ORCID. And I'm not sharing their their screen here now and things, but I do know that they have some really interesting and really full connection data. So my two examples of that would be New Zealand and Finland. They're extremely, they have sort of a national system that tries to collect all of this information, and I suppose it helps them in their down the line in kind of figuring out research review and things. So, and that's essentially what ORCID is meant for. It's supposed to make your lives easier so that you don't fill out your name 7,000 times and things like that.
Exactly. We all know how frustrating that is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brian, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. For those of you who submitted some questions, we'll definitely get in touch to provide you some more in-depth assistance over the next few days. If anyone has any further questions, I encourage you to reach out to membersupport@orcid.org, specifically about the member portal. Questions about today's session or anything else, you're welcome to reach out to meetings@orcid.org, and I'll be happy to put you in contact with the person who can help you. I just want to say thanks to Brian and thanks to everyone for joining us.
Thanks to you, Kimberly, and thanks everyone. See you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.